other than select board member.
Ron will use his slides again for Article 6. Be here for the start of things.
All right, is everyone ready? You good? I think we're there.
Just waiting to check in. There's not too many people coming up.
I think we're good. There's plenty of preamble, so I think we'll be fine. Okay. Good morning, and welcome back. It is, as they say in our household, it has been a pandemic, and we are delighted to have everyone here for the 261st annual meeting of the town of Hartland. My name is Matt Dunn, and I have the honor of serving as your moderator for our first return to in-person town meeting since the pandemic. Per our tradition, we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Aidan Sawyer. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you will bear with me, I'm going to give a little bit of a welcome and a sense of how things will operate today. We will then get into a couple of items before the start, and then we will proceed with the articles. So town meeting in Vermont is one of the few opportunities in the country where a community comes together to engage in meaningful discussion of the issues facing that community. In Hartland, these discussions have been known to sometimes be intense, but always civil, as we will return to being a community whose strengths is our commitment to each other, despite differences of opinion and politics. The moderator's job is to independently and objectively oversee the smooth and inclusive proceedings before us, and I will endeavor to do so. I am bound to follow the procedures outlined by Robert's Rules of Order, Vermont state law, and with guidance from the Secretary of State. I have asked Pat Richardson, past town moderator of many years, to serve as my parliamentarian to provide me with advice on procedural matters and rulings that may come up in the course of debate. A couple of quick reminders about the process and rules. First, only registered voters of the town of Hartland are allowed to speak and vote during town meeting without permission from the body. If you are a registered voter and plan to participate, please make sure you have signed in with our election workers that are in the back. It doesn't matter if you snuck up the side stairs, you still need to sign in with the election workers in the back. If you are not a registered voter of the town of Hartland, please raise your hand now so we can know who you are. Okay. All right. Thank you. Second, we will be taking the articles in the order that they are warned, unless there is a motion to suspend the rules to take them in a different order. Third, as is my charge as town moderator, I will allow only amendments that are germane to the warned article per guidance from Robert's Rules, case law, and the Secretary of State. Discussion of non-warned items can happen under Article 11, but any action taken will not be binding. Fourth, we have a tradition in Hartland of allowing for open debate. I will do my best to ensure debate appropriately remains on the topic of the current motion, and will also try to ensure everyone is heard. including not calling on an individual for a second time before others who have not spoken have had a chance to speak. All questions are to be directed through the moderator, not directed to specific individuals. Before speaking, a person needs to be recognized, wait for the microphone, which will be delivered by one of our two runners, Aidan Sawyer and Abe Dunn. And I will ask you to state your name before speaking. I will actually refrain from calling on people by name so that individuals who are new to town or town meeting do not feel left out. Fifth, by rule, I will read the article before entertaining a motion, which will precede the debate on the motion. When debate appears to have concluded, I will repeat the article and then move on to the vote, unless you give me permission to not read a particularly lengthy article. Finally, a helpful tool is something called unanimous consent. If I perceive a change in the proceedings that requires a rule suspension it will be non-controversial or in line with tradition, I will preface a motion with "without objection" and suggest that next step. If anyone at all has a concern with that action, they are absolutely allowed to object at which point we would either not go forward with the rule suspension or go through a formal vote on the rule suspension that will require a two-thirds vote. Otherwise, I will continue to proceed. Is that clear? Okay. And in fact, we're going to try that unanimous consent item because we have a tradition which is having our legislators who make themselves available to us to address us about things happening in Montpelier. And I have asked them and taken the prerogative as a recovering legislator to limit their remarks to 5 minutes, and I will be keeping track and providing a friendly hook. So, but as I mentioned, the individuals who are not residents of the town of Hartland need to have permission from the body in order to be able to speak. And so, without objection, I will ask our state senator, Allison Clarkson. Do you wish to go first? Wait, we can change that order. So without objection, we will ask State Representative Elizabeth Burrows to make, what? Yep, to make 5-minute remarks that will be followed by our own Representative John Bartholomew, who does not need permission, and then our two senators will speak. So, Elizabeth. And if you could provide her with a microphone.
Thank you. Well, first I'd like to thank you for letting me be here today. It's really exciting to be here because I haven't spoken before you yet, even though I've been your representative for at least one biennium. And so thank you for letting me be here. I am Elizabeth Burrows, and I represent Windsor 1 along with John Bartholomew at the State House General Assembly. Windsor 1 consists of Hartland, West Windsor, and Windsor. And last biennium, I served on the Healthcare Committee. This biennium, I serve on the House General and Housing Committee. And that includes everything from the Vermont State blank, like the Vermont State smell, and the Vermont State color. This year we have a bill for the Vermont State March. You may have also read about a bill that we have that concerns funeral pyres. That's in our committee. We also are concerned with Native American affairs and social justice issues, and also labor issues. So the first bill that we worked on this biennium was the paid family leave insurance bill. And that allows for 3 basic things, which first is an ample leave time. That's not to be confused with sick leave or other paid leave. This is ample leave time. 100%, as we voted it out of our committee, it was 100% wage replacement based on the average weekly earnings and total job protection. Categories for this, can you hear me all right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Categories for this type of leave include an employee or their family members' serious medical conditions or recovery therefrom, including rehabilitation, miscarriage, childbirth and child bonding, military exigency, which is allowing a family to prepare for a military member's leave, or active duty, I'm sorry, not leave, bereavement, full 3 months for addiction recovery, and safe leave for people who are victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, or stalking. Importantly, it also updates, am I up?
You're good.
Okay. It also updates the definition of family to include basically your chosen family, a significant person with whom you have a significant personal bond like that of a family member. So not necessarily based on biology or other status. Employers would share, it does include a payroll tax of 0.05% as we voted it out, although that may come down as it's in the Ways and Means Committee. The employer would pay a minimum of 50% of that and the employee the other 50%. It was calculated that for a person earning $40,000 a year, that amount comes to a grand sum of $70 a year. Let's see. That bill is currently in the Ways and Means Committee and probably will undergo a lot of hammering into different form, but that's how we voted it out. We also have, we passed out the basic needs budget, which is, which I plan to present when I get back, and that describes the amount of money it costs to live in the state of Vermont. So, as you know, we've had a lot of inflation and other skyrocketing costs, and our basic needs budget, upon which a lot of state aid is calculated, does not match the actual cost of living here.
Great.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
Representative Burrows. Okay.
Thank you very much. I just want to
Very
say
good.
thank you. And I apologize that I have to scurry off for, I live in Brownsville, and I have to scurry off for our own town meeting. But John and I are planning to have some constituent meetings on Saturday at our various libraries. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. John.
Thank you, Matt. I'm John Bartholomew, and as always, I need to express what a distinct honor and privilege it is to represent all of you. And as always, there's a lot going on. I made a few notes about things to go over. Anyway, Representative Burrows and I put together a town meeting report that we have 13 active committees in the House, and there are articles about each committee and kind of what they're up to, and that's available online. We'll leave slips back in here with an address, the address to get to that, and we'll also put it on the town listserv. Let's see. This biennium, I'm back on the Transportation Committee. I was also elected to serve in the House Rules Committee. In transportation, one of the big things we do the first part of the year is the transportation bill, which is going to be this year more than $850 million to fund transportation policies that include stuff like road and bridge maintenance, aviation, railroads, and snow removal. And this is our second largest transportation budget ever, and it's designed to leverage the massive amount of federal funds we're getting, funds that are going to be over about $1.6 billion over 5 years, to give Vermont the opportunity to make transformational investments in our transportation infrastructure and to address climate change. Many of our House committees are tasked with looking at ways to combat climate change and develop plans for resiliency. Over 40% of Vermont's carbon emissions come from the transportation sector. So this year's T-bill will continue to make significant investments in policies to help Vermonters transition to more fuel-efficient vehicles and expand the electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Additionally, we're going to be investing in public transportation infrastructure that supports more walking, biking, public transit options across the state. And as recommended in Vermont's Climate Action Plan, a primary goal is to electrify our transportation system to meet mandated climate goals. I'll mention what's happening in some of the other committees until I get the hook. Agriculture, that committee has been expanded. Agriculture and forestry now includes food resiliency, and they're working on a plan to continuing offering universal school meals, and also they're working to address the financial crisis facing Vermont's organic dairy farmers. Appropriations Committee, they've just finished their work on the budget adjustment, which we do the beginning of each year. And we're working on developing a balanced budget for 2024. This is a Vermont tradition, creating a balanced budget, even though there's no statutory requirement to do that. Commerce and Economic Development, they're working on workforce development. With historic low employment, there's a desperate need for more trained and skilled workers in every sector, especially in healthcare, like nursing, construction, and education. They're also working on improving unemployment insurance. Corrections and Institution Committee, they're working on the 2-year capital bill which authorizes the state to bond money to fund critical infrastructure projects like maintenance on public buildings, schools, state police barracks, correctional facilities, and state offices. And they also work on water issues. So there's a Clean Water Fund that provides water quality projects to reduce pollution in our lakes, streams, and rivers. And a Drinking Water Fund that provides funding for improving safety and quality of drinking water. The Education Committee is working on considering options to address the statewide backlog for renovation and replacement of school buildings. They're also working to better support youth mental health across the state and to strengthen the ability of schools and mental health agencies to address these needs. They're also working on the really difficult issue of public tuition for independent schools. The Environment and Energy Committees working to develop a plan to permanently conserve an increasing percentage of landscape, and the goal here is strategic conservation of land to protect biodiversity and ensure continued ecological and economic benefits for a resilient and connected landscape. They're also working on household toxic waste to address the disposal of the hundreds of everyday toxic household chemicals we all have under our sinks and in our garages and basements. They're also looking at updating the bottle bill, which is a decades-old system, to include most beverages.
And that is 5 minutes.
And there are several more committees, and I'll stop there. And I'll just say all these articles and more are on our legislative update, and that's just the House I'm talking about. That doesn't even touch on the Senate, which is up next.
So, without objection, we will hear from Woodstock resident Senator Allison Clarkson.
Good morning. I'm Allison Clarkson. I have the distinct honor and pleasure of serving you in the Vermont State Senate. I serve you as the Majority Leader in the Senate. I serve you as Vice Chair of Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs, and on Senate Government Operations. And to that end, I would just like to say we're thrilled to be included at town meetings across the 25 town district that we serve. we forget that that towns are creatures of the state and that we are very important partners. We work closely together. We don't always necessarily see eye to eye, towns in the state, but we work very closely to make progress on behalf of the people of our county, our state, our towns. So it is really a pleasure to be here today and to give you a notion of what we're up to. First of all, we're only halfway through our legislative session, so all the bills you're going to hear about are still in play. Nothing is finalized until the end of May, as you all know. And then, of course, we have to see if the governor will sign them or not. The Senate had 4 priorities, and you won't be shocked by any of them. Housing, workforce, childcare, and reducing climate change. And we are delivering on all 4 of those. 3 of them we've actually begun in the Senate, and we're sending to the House by the end of next week. And workforce is coming from the House and will be, even though I'm working on it with my counterparts in the House, that will come to us. So, housing. We have a huge housing crisis. The housing crisis is exemplified by what's happening across the street. And we have had the luxury for the last 2.5 years of being able to spend federal money to solve this problem. We have appropriated hundreds of millions of dollars, almost $400 million in new housing, in renovation of housing, in bringing low-hanging fruit like accessory dwelling units online. We've been working hard, spending money. This year, we're working on reducing the barriers that we have created. Zoning, permitting, and regulatory reform is what we're working on, and is the bill that's in Senate Natural at the moment, which is Dick's committee. So that addresses Act 250 and really focuses on trying to create more density in the areas our towns and communities identify for growth, whether that's our downtown and village centers or whether through your bylaw modernization work is a growth center of some variety. So we're working hard on that. That is a very exciting bill, in my humble opinion. Of course, it came from my committee. And is one that I think we'll be able to make huge strides on creating more density in our state. The second bill, childcare, we're working, that bill is not finished. It will be done by the end of next week. It's due out of committee. Access to more childcare, more financial assistance for families up through moderate incomes, help and resources for childcare workers and childcare centers. And the thorny issue of what is business's contribution going to be, because already parents are hemorrhaging for childcare. Communities, the state is supportive of childcare, but business is still yet to be at the table in any kind of consistent way. And those are the 3 pieces of how we finance and support our childcare system. And then, of course, the 4th, reducing climate change. We have taken a huge step forward in planning for the future. We know we need to transition off polluting fossil fuels. And this step, S5, which we've heard from many of you, pro and con, is a huge step forward in that work, because what it's doing is putting a plan, sending our vision, our hope, our expectations off to our policy architect, which is the Public Utilities Commission. And the Public Utilities Commission is going to take all that visioning and turn it into a detailed plan that will come back to the legislature in 2 years. And we will then be able to vote on something that we will know what it will cost, we'll know what the implications are, and we'll be much better equipped to pass that work. But our goal is to transition off fossil fuels as fully as we can by 2050. And so nothing is happening right now in terms of the impact on your lives, although we all hope you will begin to make your own plans for transitioning off what we know are destroying the world as we know it. And anyway, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dick McCormick.
Dick McCormick. And
thank you very much.
And so, without objection, we will hear from Bethel resident Dick McCormick.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm enough of an old fart that it's always been that the senators were told strictly to stay in the back of the room until invited to the front. This is nicer. I just had trouble getting used to it. In the Senate, we serve on two committees, a morning committee and afternoon. In the mornings, I serve on natural resources and energy, which, of course, is dealing with energy as it affects natural resources, specifically global warming. And then the afternoon, I serve on finance. And finance deals with pretty much everything. Specifically the finances of the state, but also the regulation of utilities and the entire financial business sector, the regulation of banks and insurance. And that means right now, one of the things we're looking at is am I still on this suddenly? Mm-hmm. Okay. How we're going to pay for the state's role in expanding child care, because it's going to be expensive, and that's one of the things we're working on. And the federal money has made life fairly easy for us for a couple of years, hard on us in other ways, but there's been a lot of federal money. That's drying up. So that's the challenge right now. Is it's a good idea how we're going to pay for it. I want to talk a little bit about S5. Global warming is the overarching existential issue of our time. Jimmy Carter in 1979 said, we can get started conserving energy now, and we can move slowly and incrementally and painlessly. Or we can wait 30 years and have a catastrophe. Well, we've waited 40 years. We are way behind schedule, and we need to get moving on global warming. If dealing effectively with global warming required sacrifice, I would hope that we, the American people, would rise to the occasion. Gird ourselves to the task ahead, and so bear ourselves that this will be their finest hour, to paraphrase Winston Churchill, who I get compared to by my colleagues sarcastically. That's often the chuckling review of his, all right, Winston. No, but seriously, I would hope we'd be ready for the sacrifice. S5 does not ask for a sacrifice. And I would ask people, please, okay, if you get a notice in the envelope with your fuel bill, of course you're going to read it and wonder about it. Please reserve judgment, okay, because it's not coming from an unbiased source. And if you're hearing from my friend, and I mean it, my friend John McClary, please reserve judgment. What S5 does is it addresses the fact that heating fuel prices are through the roof, that people can't afford to heat their homes. And that's a crisis. And what that means is, and I'm going to be bipartisan here, President George W. Bush was right when he said we've got to kick our habit, our addiction to fossil fuels. The alternatives to fossil fuels are cheaper than fossil fuels, but they're expensive to get into. And so the upfront costs are high. And that's where the idea comes from that environmentally benign, or at least less destructive, energy is, quote, elitist. It's for the prosperous, and to suggest that people should use heat pumps, should maybe drive electric, is to show disrespect for working class people, for the salt of the earth, real people. In fact, what S5 is about is attempting to make it easier and cheaper to get into alternatives to fossil fuels. Now, it's a complicated... Are we done?
That is 5 minutes.
This will be their finest hour.
Thank you. Thank you for our representatives and our senators for joining us today and for adhering to the time frame. So what I want to do now is another tradition, which is a conservation award. And Rob, if you would like to do the honors, please.
For Steve and Leslie here today. We knew that they were busy on the farm and there was a chance they wouldn't be able to be here because we couldn't tell them exactly when we'd go on. So unfortunately, they won't get to receive it in person. But I am representing the Hartland Conservation Commission, and the award from the Conservation Commission for 2023 goes to Carrie Gawalt and Steve and Leslie of Cedar Mountain Farm. To let you know why, I would ask you to remember that farming and dairying in Vermont are known for an intensive workload and really difficult economics, and too often an adverse ecologic impact. In contrast to this, our award recipients have created an economically successful, diversified farm business while practicing sustainable, renewable practices that are actually improving the soil, increasing native plant populations, and feeding many neighbors. In 1999, Carrie Gawalt and Stephen Leslie took on depleted soil of fields that had been farmed continuously since the 1770s in conventional agriculture, when they moved to Cedar Mountain Farm at Cobb Hill Co-housing. Since then, they've restored healthy soil through conservation practices with an eye to sustainability and diversity, as they operate a micro dairy, an adjacent cheese-making business, and a vegetable CSA program. They incorporated cover crops to reduce erosion. They composted their cow manure in the barn instead of relying on a manure pit or lagoon. They grazed their dairy herd and draft horses to improve pastures and provide the animals with time outdoors. They converted their 1-acre intensive garden to no-dig, no-till beds and grow 26 varieties of vegetables and herbs without pesticides or herbicides. Local bark and wood chips keep paths intact between rows without mowing. They believe and practice that livestock are an essential component to a healthy farm system. They share a knowledge as active advocates for animal agriculture. Their fields are managed with horse-powered equipment, reducing reliance on fossil fuels. Stephen's books teach others about animal-powered farm skills. Carrie also works with the local 4-H program. Recently, they've further increased biodiversity and food for wildlife by planting hedgerows of native bushes and trees. We're pleased to bestow a local honor on this hardworking couple who've built a successful, diverse, land-based enterprise here in Hartland. They're proof that small farms can succeed in Vermont, and we're grateful to have them in Hartland. Their names will be placed on the plaque in Damon Hall with those of previous winners. And thank you for helping us celebrate them with this award. I hope if you see them around town, since they weren't able to be here, that you'll congratulate them and pass on our appreciation. So there's a picture from their farm as well as time, so they'll receive this for their home.
So I'm Rob Anderegg, also with the commission. And we started this tradition of having awards several years ago now, and we took a break when the pandemic hit because we felt like having the in-person recognition that these awards, that was a valuable part of the award. So we were a couple of years behind. There's a plaque on the back wall there if you haven't noticed it yet, but we're a couple of years behind in our awards. And so to try and catch up, we're going to make a second award today. Typically, we don't give an award to a sitting commissioner because it seems kind of self-serving. But this year, we're going to make an exception to that because we have such an exceptional commissioner to recognize. The commission started back in 1989, so it's been around for over 30 years now. And almost from the beginning, there's one person who has been continuously on the commission, and that's our own Jennifer Waite back here. Jennifer does not just show up for meetings. She has served as the clerk, the treasurer, the co-chair, and the chair of the commission at various times. And I don't think it's an understatement to say that really every conservation project in Hartland over the past 30 years, Jennifer has had a hand in. Most recently, she's been working with the school on a piece of wooded land adjacent to the school that we call the 17-acre wood. The school uses that for classroom instruction, which during the pandemic was particularly important. They put a number of outdoor classrooms there, but they take the children out just to be in the woods and to have some outdoor instruction. The path down to that place in the woods is rather steep, and when it's wet or icy, it can be treacherous even for the healthy and hardy. For people who have any sort of mobility issues, it's impossible. And so several years ago, Jennifer and others recognized that what would be really helpful would be an accessible trail to get down to those classrooms. She has worked with the school, wrote a grant recently, and brought in almost $200,000 to make that trail a reality, and construction will start later this year. But this is not just a one-time award. This is sort of a lifetime achievement award. And so, Jennifer, for all that you have done and all that we're planning to have you do in the future, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a little award for Jennifer.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you. One point of order, if everyone could please turn off the sound on your phone. We have been hearing pings and dings here and there. You can turn it all the way off if you would like. Moving on to the next piece before the official orders of the day, I want to do introductions of the folks who are here on the stage, and then the Select Board Chair is going to make a special presentation. So we have to my right our town clerk, Brian Stoffolino. On the far end, we have our town manager, Dave Ormiston, who will be speaking later with permission of the body. We also have, from the far right over, we have Mary O'Brien, Mandy Potter, our chair, Phil Hobby, Clyde Jenny, and Jim Riley. And Phil, I think you wanted to make a couple of remarks.
Yes, thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to see whole bodies instead of faces here today. I have three different things today that all kind of circle around gratitude. First, Mary O'Brien, thank you. Thank you for over 20 years of serving on the Select Board. Thank you for your personal guidance and support when I became chair, including corrections on procedure and that gentle kick under the table when I was running amok. Thank you for your passion for the democratic process. Mary's passion for through time and time and writing up the Select Board article this year. So thank you, Mary. Okay. I want to take a moment to say thank you to Martha McGlynn. We didn't get a chance to say that due to COVID. Thank you, Martha, for your many years of volunteering, and thank you for proofreading the town report this year. And sitting next to Martha, I also want to thank Gordon. Gordon Richardson, I want to thank you for your stewardship and your dedication to the town. You've been an amazing colleague to us all. Thank you, Gordon. It seems we never get a chance to thank the many volunteers that volunteer in our town. So this morning, we, the Select Board, are going to name an organization. And if you are or were a member, would you please stand and stay standing? So forgive us if you're up first and have to stay standing for a long time. Mary, would you start?
Okay. I think Phil's point in doing this is to underscore the fact that volunteers weave a web in our community that makes us so much better, and we want to acknowledge that. So the first are members of the ARPA committee, which is the American Rescue Plan Act. Anybody? Okay, they're not here, they're busy doing ARPA stuff. Cemetery Advisory Committee. Thank you, Tom. Conservation Commission. We know they're here. Thank you. Energy Committee. Nobody from the Energy Committee. Didn't have the energy today. Justices of the Peace, which when they get elected, they also have to serve on the Board of Abatement and the Board of Civil Authority. So that's quite a big commitment. Thank you. The Planning Commission. Planning Commissioners, yay. And the Recreation Committee. Anybody in the Recreation Committee? Thanks, everybody. Please keep standing.
Guess it moves to me. Anyone who served as a health officer for the town of Hartland, please stand. A tree warden. The school board. Friends of the library. Library Board of Trustees. There's some up in the balcony that you can't see. Fire and rescue groups.
There's a lot of people.
And aging in Hartland.
And it moves on to me, and I think I'm going to run out of people to stand. Hartland Town Band. Hartland Community Arts. Historical Society. Farmers Market Board.
I'm the manager.
Town Oven Committee. Green Up Day organizers. We have standing people that are raising hands in the back. And Meals on Wheels.
I'm up. Heartland Food Shelf. Heartland Garden Club. Heartland Hillhoppers. Heartland Winter Trails Board. The Nature Club. Heartland 4-H. Heartland Boy and Girl Scouts. And the School and Rec Athletic Coaches. So if you've ever volunteered your time to coach.
There we go. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Sometimes what is essential to life is invisible to us. You as volunteers are the very tangible warp and weft that make up the fabric that we call our community. I hope in some small way that you know that you are appreciated, and together with others, you make our town richer, stronger, and more resilient. Thank you. I very quickly want to also thank our town staff, our town manager, our town clerks, our finance folks, our listers, the recreation center crew, the ordinance and planning administrator, the animal control officer, don't see him today, and the constable. Oh, yes, and thank you, and the highway crew. Thank you for your time, and I'll turn it back to Matt.
Great. Thank you. Great. Okay. I believe that is all the pre-official business. And so we're on to orders of the day. First is Article 1, which is to elect by Australian ballot town officers for the ensuing year. Polls will be open at 7 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. The offices are listed as town moderator, 1-year term, select person, 1 3-year term, select person, 1 2-year term, lister, 1 3-year term, first constable, 1 2-year term, library trustee, 1 3-year term, and library trustee, 1 3-year term. I don't believe this article, parliamentarian, my first thing, I don't think this needs to be first or seconded or passed. It is simply a notification that Australian ballot opportunities are open downstairs for registered voters in the town of Hartland until 7 p.m. This evening. Moving on to Article 2. Shall a town vote to appropriate $28,200 to support Aging in Heartland's Hartland Community Nurse Program? Do I have a motion to approve Article 2? And I'll ask you to state your name, please. Do I have a second? So I have a first and a second for Article 2, and it has been moved. What we will do now is have a presentation from Aging in Hartland. I will ask the folks on the stage to exit carefully and safely so that a presentation may be made on the screen behind them. They will not be returning to the stage until the last article of the day, so you can be cozy. So, for the Aging in Hartland presentation, we have one individual who will be doing a presentation who is not a voter, Katie Williams. And without objection, we will allow Katie to address the audience. Okay? All right. Katie.
Thank you. Nice to see everybody again. Nancy and I will be sharing a presentation today. It is a video, and it is also a slide presentation. So some of the slides will have audio. This is our first time trialing this, so we're hoping you can hear the recorded audio, testimony from our community partners and our clients. And in between those slides, we will be speaking. So it is a timed video, and we ask that you save all questions for after our presentation. And I just want to say it's amazing to be up here again. The last time I was here was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 9 months pregnant. And here we are. We did it. We got through pandemic together. Thank you for having us.
Amy Swar, a care management nurse in the clinic at Mount Escutney and Ottaquechee Health Center, and I'm part of the community health team there. Since Aging in Hartland added community nurses to their team, we've shared responsibility for Hartland residents who face the greatest challenges to their wellness. Nancy North and Katie Williams developed relationships with our Hartland clients that bring added value to the primary care team.
Often people will say, we already have a visiting nurse, why do I need you? And I'll say, that's great, because their services are very much needed, but there's a time limit, they need a doctor's order, and it will get billed to your insurance. As a community nurse, we visit you in your home. We get to know you and your needs, your family, and your pets. We help you connect to services you might need and volunteers to help you in your home. We work with you to help you stay safe. We can do a safety check in your home and help you make changes. So who can refer? We only need a referral from you. You can call and say, I need something. A neighbor can call if they're concerned. We do not need a doctor's order. We determine how long you need us, not an insurance company. And there is never a charge to your insurance at all. We are here just to help you.
I'm just happy I can have a nurse come to the house and check my vitals or whatever, especially when you hadn't had a doctor's appointment for 6 months. You're lucky to have a nurse.
Yeah.
Check my breathing, my lungs, my oxygen. Just having you come and being here.
We have this acronym, HEALTH. The H, we are your health advisors. We can guide you with all of your questions. If we don't know the answers, we'll find it. We are educators, whether it's a new diagnosis or just helping you live a healthy lifestyle. We will always advocate for you. We can be the liaison between you and your health providers. We are part of your team in the home. And we see you as a person, not just a diagnosis. In the quest for wellness, we treat the whole person, body, mind, spirit, and emotions. Our goal is helping you to be as healthy as possible, to help you get the services that you might need so that you can age in place in your home as safely as possible. And yes, I speak fast.
It doesn't matter what it is. My first reaction, Katie will know. Katie can do it. I consider you the answer to all my problems.
We're talking about how aging in Hartland is the connection between people and services. The nurse identifies risk and need in the home and coordinates with Aging in Hartland volunteers and programs. We work with individuals, yes, but after time, we get to understand the collective needs as well. And we share these needs as appropriate with our nurse committee, who ultimately connects with our volunteers. A nod to the volunteers again, Phil, thank you, to ensure we're meeting many of these needs. This kind of partnership allows us to enhance how we address the very prevalent concerns of social isolation, home safety, and emergency preparedness. We will be hosting our first of a series of senior cafes starting on April 7th at the Hartland Library.
Nancy North has been coming and checking in on us for quite a long while. First, before we actually knew that there was something wrong with us, except old age. But now, after we know what my diagnosis is, having Nancy there to explain things, it makes things clearer and less awesome to worry about.
Okay, so who do we serve? We do not discriminate by income level, by condition, or by diagnosis. Our services are available to every person in the town of Hartland that is over the age of 60. This is around 1,300 people maybe. Not everybody is going to want our services. Not everybody is going to need our services, but it's nice to know that if they do, the service is available to them.
This is Roger Tratcher, and we've for quite some time now really appreciated the support of the visiting nurses coming to our home on a regular basis and being just downright thoughtful and full of information. And the visiting nurses have given back to the older generation of the community and helped tie them together with the younger folks.
So we see a growing need in our community. We're approaching the 10-year anniversary of our first nurse hire in 2014. At that time, the nurse was budgeted to work around 8 hours per week. When I came here in 2020, we were looking to grow our program to be a 2-nurse program. We've done that now. And we're working on average 25 to 30 hours a week, while we are budgeted for 20 hours a week. So looking ahead over the next year, we anticipate steadily working around 30 hours per week as we grow our program. We got 4 referrals this last month. It ebbs and flows, but the program is absolutely growing. Thank you for your patience as we learn how to present in this way.
Community nursing is resurging as towns recognize that the welfare and barriers for some of their residents benefit from intervention that nurses professionally offer. I appreciate Hartland's nurses and the services they bring to residents in their care. They bring a layer of quality of life and wellness to the town as a whole in partnership with agency partners.
Each year, we evaluate our program and the hours spent, and what we see is an increasing need for in-home support. Today's vote is for only half of our projected budget. We will never bill you or your insurance company. So the other half, as a community, we are fortunate to have Aging in Hartland, a dedicated group of volunteers that seek out grants and donations, the other half of our budget that support the nursing program. And so this is kind of how it all works. And now you can all dance. Thank you for listening to us. If anyone has any questions, we can try to answer them now.
We'll do that as part of the proceedings,
Okay.
so we can take that as a second.
And just an FYI, after the meeting, I will be in the lobby if anyone has any specific questions about the program there.
Great. Thank you. So Article 2 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, including questions? So we need a mic here. Are we out of mics? Okay. Please state your name.
Jeffrey Bell. I've brought with me this Bible. Actually, this is the Bible for people who practice medicine. And I'd like to read the first article, and this is January 2003.
So, Jeff, one is not usually allowed to read from items if it's short.
I'm not going to read from it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Let me read from it. I'm only going to read the title article, and you'll see why this is. Hold on one second. I'm going to sit. I'm a little nervous.
All fine.
So the first article is social isolation and loneliness as medical issues. And why this is critical across the country, we're finding that frail and older people who are alone really struggle, not only with emotional issues, but with other medical issues. And I'm bringing this up because what I've seen as I've been working with Aging in Hartland, the work that the nurses do is incredible in terms of getting to people, sitting with people, working around the loneliness that they're dealing with, and that this is an incredibly important issue, and I just want you to know how it means so much to me when I listen to some of the, what you guys couldn't really hear well, I remember Nancy's just talking with someone, being with someone, just was really critical. I'm going to finish with the other important thing that the article brought up is that there's a reduction in people seeking out care that they don't really need from EMS and the fire company. So this is a very, very critical article, and I'm just hoping that people understand that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any more discussion on Article 2? Any more discussion? Okay, I will repeat the article. Article 2, shall the town vote to approve $28,200 to support Aging in Hartland's Hartland Community Nurse Program? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it, and Article 2 passes. On to Article 3. Shall the town vote to appropriate $80,000 to support the Hartland Volunteer Fire Department? Is someone willing to move Article 3? Yes, please state. And do we have a second? Do we have a The Article 3 has been moved and seconded. Before we get to discussion, I believe our chief would like to make a presentation. Without objection, the presentation will cover both this article and the other two articles pertaining to the fire department. That will be Article 6 and Article 10. We won't have discussion of those two articles until they come up in order, but the presentation will address all three of the articles. John?
Stand over here if that doesn't make it squeal too bad. So I'm John Sanders. I think most of you know me. I moved to Hartland in 2000 with my wife, Nicole Buck, who's our school board chair. And in our house, we've been pretty engaged in the community for a long time. My voice does this thing, and I'm going to try to just work through it. So I stopped by the fire station today to get a glass of water, and I looked up on the wall, and I realized that I've now been chief for 15 years. So. More significantly, this is our 75th anniversary. We were established in 1948, and we're going to have a big old party this year. We're going to do it at the North Hartland Dam on June 11th. There's a pig roast, which Nikki didn't let me have at our wedding, and I'm not sure you're all invited, but we'll see how much food there is. So, next slide, please. This is our crew. We've got around 30 people. It's hard to count because every time you count through them, somebody's got an event, they got to move out of town, somebody's out on medical leave. But we have around 30 members. The ones in red are also on our rescue squad, and I'll talk a little bit more about our rescue squad. We are our rescue squad is first responders. We don't do any ambulance transport in Hartland. We rely on paid departments around us, Woodstock, Hartford, and Windsor, with Windsor providing most of the coverage in our town. We did 160, so there's 11 of those folks. I think there actually might be 12. We'll count on the next slide. We did 167 calls in 2022, which is slightly up from the year before. And our 5 new members, Remy, who's a paramedic, firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and an ER nurse or something. She just joined us, just moved into town. Anthony from Hartford is commuting into Hartland when we have calls. Chris is in the same situation. Steve is a pastor, reverend, and he is in our firefighter 1 curriculum right now with the state of Vermont. And Ian is a young, ambitious guy who makes record time from almost Quechee to Hartford when we get calls. So this is our crew. Lydia, who was new last year, she's now a full-time firefighter in Lebanon. So that's pride in my voice. We getting them out there. So next slide, please. So I color this chart red for fires, blue for accidents, blue with snow on it for accidents on the interstate. I don't know why. And then gold is like everything else. Town needs help with some trees, power lines are down, rescue squad needs an extra hand lifting a patient, my oven's not working. My favorite one I think I shared with you last year is my oven's at 350 degrees and it's just climbing, and we finally informed that person that that was the clock. Some calls really resonate with you. Next slide, please. So yeah, we actually have 13 members on our rescue squad, and several of them are advanced paramedics, advanced EMTs. James is our animal control officer, which is a Vermont first responder, and he's doing great. I think he's beaten us all on calls so far this year. Alan Beebe is our paramedic and director, and I forgot on the prior slide, his wife Kim Beebe. Together they make a great team helping us out. Next slide, please. Oh, so yeah, we did 313 rescue calls. I don't know if anybody else is like end here. That was a fantastic nursing program in Hartland. Next slide. We had a really busy year. We finished up the Firefighter 1-2 program. It was pretty much the Firefighter 2 program went into this year. We did an advanced fire behavior program. That's the sort of weird-looking tractor trailer in the lower left. Alan Beebe likes to describe this as we're going to put you all in at about 350, 400 degrees, bake you for 20 minutes until you're nice and ripe, and then we'll let you out. Cheyenne got to do this. I got to do this. We had a really good time. We learned sort of the limits of our gear, and it's pretty incredible to hang out in an environment like that for 20 minutes and be able to walk out and then talk to your buddies. You learn a lot of really interesting things. You get to see fire dancing over your head, you know, we don't get into the environment very often, so that was a spectacular training opportunity, fully paid for by the state of Vermont. We put a new hydrant in on Rice Road. This got a chuckle out of me and my neighbors too, that somebody wondered if we put a municipal water system in on Rice Road. So this is our first pressurized hydrant that comes off of a pond. So the hydrant's physics, the hydrant's lower than the pond, so it actually gets some pressure from the pond. And those are a little more expensive because you got to pay for that big hydrant. And my neighbors like to put Christmas hats on it, Santa Claus hats on it, dress it up for Halloween. But that was also paid for, I think, 75% funding by the state of Vermont. That was a grant that we were awarded. And Matt Dow helped us with the excavation, as well as John Dumas and some other folks threw in some labor to make that all work. Every year we try to do fire prevention. It's 250-ish kids down there. And then we try to get out to the local nursery schools and stuff and start spreading the word early on fire prevention. That went pretty well this year. We had, in our lower right, this is Halloween. And I like to joke that probably you don't pick up on it, but that's not our fire truck. That's a Scutney's fire truck. And so we dressed up as the Scutney firefighters. And the reason why is our engine, which is, I'll have to look at the next slide, not old enough to need a new paint job. needed a new paint job. There was a warranty issue. The paint they put on it in Florida isn't as robust as the paint we put it on up here in Vermont. And it was peeling and bubbling all over the place. So they stripped most of it down and replaced most of the paint, and that was half of the funds for that were covered by warranty, and we had to pick up the rest of that. And that was out of service for 3 or 4 weeks or so while they did that. They did a great job. It's nice to have it back. We've seen some significant price increases. Everybody's been talking about this. Maintenance was the big one, and I've got a slide on that, or repairs, I guess I should say. Fuel and the gear, the price of our gear is just going up. And we had some significant vehicle upkeep events, which is in the next slide or two. I'll talk about that. Next slide. This is I put this up every year, and I keep moving that green line to the right. We try to get 20 to 25 years out of our fire trucks. That's somewhat arbitrary, but it seems like a nice, healthy lifetime. It's certainly longer than my truck or car lasts me. Our forestry is the one that's due, and we've ordered that. We actually ordered and agreed to order it last year, and we have to pay for it when it arrives, but all the funds are set aside for that. We're not raising tax dollars for that. There's money in a capital reserve account to pay for that, and they think it'll be done around January, but you know how long it takes to get cars these days, so that's the story there. Engine 2 would be the next one due, and then Tanker 1 would come after that. Engine 1 was 2015, so it was 7, 8 years old when it needed a new paint job. We hope to get a nice long life out of that. And Tanker 2 is our newest piece of equipment, and we got at least another 20 years out of that. One thing we're talking about right now is if you order a fire truck today, it costs almost twice what it costs 3, 4 years ago. And it takes 3 years before it's delivered, which is a big planning concern. And water in Hartland is hard to get to the fire scene. We don't have hydrants all over town like the cities do. And one thing we're talking about doing is combining a purchase in sort of the next 4 to 6 years, something like that, combining the replacement of Engine 2 and Tanker 1 with one vehicle that's both a fire pumping truck and that would carry the water capacity. So basically our tankers carry water, and they have a really tiny pump, and they can't pump it off very fast. And our fire trucks can pump off water really fast, but you have to be able to supply them with water. So that's why we have engines or pumpers and tankers. And what we'd like to do, and what our neighbors all around us are doing, is they're getting pumper-tanker combinations, which take up the same amount of space, but can do both the job of an engine and the job of a tanker truck. And I think that would be a wise use of money when it's time to make that investment, that we consider a pumper tanker to replace 2 vehicles with one and consolidate our fleet potentially slightly. So that's not a decision, it's just the way we're thinking right now. Next slide. So these are the big ouches from this year and why we're looking to dip into the Capital Reserve Fund to reimburse our operating expenses from the last year. We repainted the engine. Engine 2, we took our engine over to Sable & Sons, and they followed the engine with Engine 1 with Engine 2. And on Engine 2's way over to Sable & Sons, its brakes caught on fire, which is really embarrassing, and I'm glad it happened in Hartford and not in Hartland. But, so we replaced the brakes, or did a major brake job. The defrost blower that defrost the windows, that went kaput. And then the really scary thing that happened is Sable said, you may need to, we may not be able to inspect this vehicle next year because it looks like you're getting flaking on the frame. And once the frame goes on a truck, you have to replace the whole truck. It won't pass inspection. We took it, Chet helped us find somebody down in the Springfield, Claremont area, and they decided that it was a big chunk of paint that came off, not a big piece of rust. And they were able to sandblast, repaint that, and we should get nice long life out of it and not have to do an emergency replacement there. So good detective work, but it cost us almost $8,000 to get through all that. The tanker had a lifetime warranty plastic tank that holds all 1,500 gallons. This tanker is reincarnated. We took the body off of it and put it onto a new chassis. And so the chassis is nice and new-ish, but the tanker was from the prior incarnation. And that plastic tank cracked, and we had it fixed. and then it cracked again, and we learned that the lifetime warranty business had gone out of business, and it cost about almost $18,000 to put a new tank in the back, and we decided it was a good use of money to replace that $18,000 and keep that tanker on the road, so we did that. And there were a few other things that got repaired while we were doing that. And then I talked about Engine 1's paint job. It's a cab lift system. One of the cylinders went on that because it doesn't get lifted very often, and we did some various miscellaneous electrical stuff while we were doing that. Adding this all together, it's just over $35,000. We have money in a capital reserve fund primarily for buying new fire trucks, but also in case something catastrophic happens. And we were able to cover this basically with a collection of discretionary funds that the fire department has received in the form of donations. And we're looking to basically reimburse ourselves so that we can be net positive on the accounts that were used to cover these expenses. The other thing we're looking to do, and this comes up, so that's one of the Articles 7, I think. The other thing I'll just note on this is in Article 10, we're looking to be able to go to the Select Board and say, this is an expense that the fire department needs, it's justifiable. If the Select Board agrees, we'd like the Select Board to say, yes, go ahead and take the money out of the Capital Reserve Fund to cover that. What we have to do right now is ask for a town meeting, wait for the town meeting to happen, have everybody vote that it's okay that we do that. And so Article 10 is about converting that account into something that's controlled still for fire department expenses only, but it's controlled by the Select Board decision and not by the entire town. Basically, trust us to manage the money, trust the Select Board to manage the money is sort of what we're trying to do.
One quick correction. It was Article 6 was the other.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah. And I think I've made this clear, but all of these costs are above expectations, and they exclude like just the annual inspections, which are $5,000 to $6,000 a year just to get our vehicles inspected. So we are increasing our budget. You can go to the next slide. So we're increasing our budget by $7,000. The biggest jump we're taking is in vehicle maintenance or repair. We kind of lump those two things together. We're going up $4,000 from $6,000 to $10,000, and then three other categories we're increasing by $1,000, and that's fuel oil, turnout gear, and fuel for the trucks. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory why we need to do that. Jim Riley was kind enough to say, are you sure that's enough? And we said, we hope so, but we'll see. But this is a step up, not just a inflationary adjustment. I talked about the forestry truck we expected in January, hopefully. Maybe it'll be in the 4th of July parade next year, not this year. Engine 2, I talked about this. It was going to be about $300,000 to replace. Now it's going to be closer to $450,000. That's just what the market is doing. And in the 2028 timeframe, 5 years from now, we want to be planning for that 3 years to get it, if that's still the case in a couple of years. And we're talking about going with a combination pumper tanker. West Windsor's done this, been very happy with it. Hartford's done this. It seems like a really good move. We were actually the pioneers when we got our engine. We got an engine rescue, and Lebanon, Hartford, and other towns around us have done the same thing, gotten the same engine we got. So now it's our turn to follow. And I always like to remind people that Station 1 and Station 2, they're doing okay, they're keeping up. The furnaces in those buildings are not brand new, and at some point, something's gonna happen, and that's gonna have to be something we have to invest in, and it would be nice to be able to go after those capital reserve funds when it's time to buy a, I don't know what, Chet, $8,000 new furnace or whatever it would cost at the time. So, next slide. So I like to, this is kind of an old one, I put it back. We have a firefighter there in the lower left. We have Doug Harrington's smiling face on the lower right. We buy uniforms, turnout gear, helmets, SCBA, radios, pagers, boots, helmets, and we insure all of these guys in case they get hurt. That costs about $14,500 to just set up one person. And we don't have, it's not 14,500 times 30, because we don't have 30 people show up at once, but it's an expensive investment, and we are really grateful for everything this town does to keep us properly equipped. Training is onerous for the fire department. A Firefighter 1 course is 180 hours. EMT course is 180 hours. There's recurring training needed every year, 24 to 48 hours for each of those. And in case it's not clear, I'm a full-time mechanical engineer, do all my working up in New Hampshire, and the only person that gets a little bit of money is our secretary for entering the forms every month, but we are 100% volunteer. Nobody is paid on this department, and we all really enjoy doing it. I will say, when you look at that trend, especially on the rescue squad, and you see it just getting more and more and more, it starts my brain thinking, is 100% volunteer sustainable? And I'm not trying to make a case that we should start paying me, but at some point, there are becoming fire departments in the state of Vermont where full-time paid chief, volunteer department, other departments around here like Norwich is paid on call, Woodstock has gone full-time, Hartford and Windsor are both full-time paid departments. And you know, we're really fortunate to have a mutual aid system where we can depend on those paid departments around us. We're sort of insulated by paid departments, and we have a mutual aid agreement where we go help them, they come help us, and it works out really well. But you know, if we continue to trend up, we might need to start thinking about some other options. Next slide. So I think this is my last slide, a bunch of statistics about volunteer firefighting. 70% of the nation's firefighters in the United States are volunteers. That's over 1 million firefighters in the country, and almost over 800,000, this is old, over 800,000 are volunteer. Many of us are struggling to meet staffing needs. I'm very grateful for Cheyenne and Chet taking their day today to come join us. Cheyenne has Tuesdays off. She's full-time the rest of the time. Chet is semi-retired in town and often a daytime responder, which is wonderful, but we don't have a whole department full of those kind of people. We are a bedroom community, and we work out of town often. Firefighters in emergency, you know, it's really hard to meet the training standards that we'd really like everybody to be at to be a volunteer fire department. We spend a lot of time away from our family. Everything's really expensive, and there are fires that we need to drop everything to go do, and there are other emergency responses that we need to drop everything to go do. So it's been a really good year. Everybody came home safe, and I think that's it. I think that's it. Yeah. But wait, there's more. I know some people don't like the look of the retro-reflective 911 signs. That is our lifeline. That's how we find you. So put it down by the road. Make sure if there's a split driveway like ours, you make some creative sign that makes it kind of clear to us which house we're going to. Knocking on your neighbor's house and asking where you live it's just burning down time trying to get us there, whether it's a medical call or an emergency or any other type of emergency. Please get those signs out. Talk to the town manager. Get to meet John Paulette, who's our, what's his title again? Ordinance, 911 administrator kind of guy. He's doing great, reaching out to me. We're trying to improve our 911 signage so we can find you. We have a ton of stories about smoke and CO detectors saving lives. I know that sounds like the classic fire chief line, but I have seen it. I've seen it every year, and it almost brings a tear to my eye when I talk about it, because these people would not have survived if it wasn't for this little device that they just happened to put a battery in that year. So it goes a long way. Please, we're coming into the spring. The snow will melt, I promise, and once it does, we're going to have a brush fire season again. So please call and get those permits so that we can advise you when we're in a bad condition to burn and try to urge you not to. There's this thing called the CARE Registry, Citizens Assistance Registry for Emergencies. I can't remember it, I have to read it. And it basically, if you go to that website, and I sent out an email on this to the listserv in January. John Paulette was going to send it out again soon, maybe he did already. You can sign up online or you can sign up on paper. It puts you into a database that gets mapped in a private way to the 911 system so that dispatchers can tell us how to get into your house, who's on oxygen, what transport needs might be special, and we can have a bunch of private information shared with us in your time of need. And if you know somebody that might benefit from this, please work with them to get them signed up. The other way we're going to use this is if we know there's a big storm coming, we can do a 3-day call ahead to the 911 state system, and they can give us a download of who might need extra help. So if we don't know about you unless you tell us. So I can't tell you how many people in Hartland are signed up for this because that's private information. 3 days before a storm, I can tell you how many people in Hartland are signed up for this when I call and make that request. And then Knox boxes, Knox like Fort Knox, this is a way for you to lock a key to your house in a master box that we have a vault key controlled, electronically audited key that lets us get in and out. And because that key also gets us into the bank, we control that key very carefully. So please be assured that if you invest in a Knox box and you hang it on your house, the process of signing up for one automatically lets me know that you have it, and that is not a lightly controlled key. We take that very seriously, and it's a very useful tool for getting into your house without having to break any windows. So sign up there on that website if you want to do that. That is the last slide, I think. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we are, even though that covered 3 different articles, we are focused on Article 3. And is there any more discussion on Article 3? Any discussion at all? Okay. Article 3, shall the town vote to appropriate $80,000 to support the Hartland Volunteer Fire Department? If there's no more discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And you have passed Article 3. Moving on to Article 4. So just as a reference for those of you who are new to the Hartland Town meeting, we have social services that the town supports. And when we have a new organization or the select board deems that an item should be addressed separately, it is separated out into a different article, and that is the case here. So Article 4, shall the town vote to appropriate $3,700 to support the Special Needs Support Center of the Upper Valley? Do I have a motion to approve Article 4? And do I have a second? Here. Please say your name. We already had Kurt Peterson say his name before. Okay, so the Article 4 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or a presentation on Article 4? Yes? I do not know. Is there a report in the town report? Is anyone? Page 89 is what I've just been told. Okay, and I understand there's someone who would like to comment on this article. Oh, okay. So, and the question is, you need to use the mic, unfortunately, because there are people who are beaming in to join us.
My name is Tom Kennedy, and I'm just wondering who they are and what they do.
Is there someone here who would like to answer that question?
Hi, I'm Liz Barker. I live on Brothers Road, and I have an adult child with a developmental disability who has enjoyed all of the services of Special Needs Support Center for the last almost 30 years of her life. It is an incredible organization, and almost all of what they do is at no charge. They offer wonderful social opportunities for all ages and stages of life. Every Wednesday, we are at Ava Gallery for Special Needs Support Center's Art Lab. So it is a very worthwhile organization, and I hope you all support it.
Okay, is there any more discussion on Article 4?
Burke, I'm an occupational therapist, and I would like to speak to, we talked about social isolation for the elderly population. I think the issue of social isolation for individuals with disabilities and the pressure puts on families is quite intense. In a rural environment, it's very hard to make those connections that could happen in a more urban area. So I think this is a really valuable opportunity, and I know many young adults who have taken advantage of it, and I know how important it is for their families as well. And I think we all need social connection, and this is one way that individuals with disabilities can really have that connection that's real.
Okay. Any further discussion on Article 4? Okay, seeing none, we will move to vote on Article 4. Shall a town vote to appropriate $3,700 to support the Special Needs Support Center of the Upper Valley? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it, and you have passed Article 4. Now, before I get to Article 5, I just want to remind folks who may have come in late, if you have not checked in, if you are a voter and you would like to participate and you've not checked in with our election worker in the back, please do so. All right, Article 5. This is a longer article, and I am going to read it once. Then we can have discussion on the contents of the article, and then I will ask permission to not read it all again, as has been the tradition, but that does require a unanimous consent. So, shall the town vote, Article 5, shall the town vote to appropriate $55,207 to support social service agencies as follows? Junction Arts and Media, CATV, $3,000. Cover Home Repair, $1,500. Green Mountain Economic Development Corporation, $1,694. Green Mountain Retired Senior Volunteer Program, RSVP, $200. Green Up Vermont, $200. Heartland Community Food Shelf, $500. Heartland Farmers Market, $2,000. Heartland Rescue Squad, $14,500. Headrest, $1,710. Healthcare and Rehabilitative Services of Southeastern Vermont, Inc., HCRS, $3,453. Mover Rockingham, Southeast Vermont Transit, $125. Mount Escutney Prevention Partnership, $2,000. Ottaquechee Health Foundation, $2,500. Public Health Council of the Upper Valley, $345. Senior Solutions, $1,500. I want to make sure I'm getting this right. Yes, $1,500. Southeastern Vermont Community Action, SEVCA, $3,220. The Family Place, $200. Tri-Valley Transit, $1,500. Vermont Center for Independent Living, $160. Visiting Nurse and Hospice, BNH for Vermont and New Hampshire, $10,500. Volunteers in Action, $900. White River Council on Aging, Bugby Senior Center, $1,000. Windsor County Mentors, $2,000. Women's Informational Services, Inc., WISE, $500. And that is it. So that is the article. We do have some folks who had planned to comment on the article, on the individual articles. What I would like to ask is that we do that, if it's okay with the folks who did, plan to say a few words, we can wait until there are questions, or you can certainly bring up issues if you have, if you are a voter. Okay, so is there any discussion on Article 5? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. When you do that long an article, you lose place. So, do I have a motion to adopt Article 5? Can you say, repeat your name, please, for the Kate Bell? Bell? And do I have a second? All right, so Article 5 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Mike is coming.
My name is Bruce Renfro, and I've got two questions, actually. One is, what is the Mount Scottney Prevention Partnership? And two, the Hartland Farmers Market is requesting $2,000 and the justification for that request.
Okay. I'm going to ask you actually to repeat it for those who have masks, and we welcome people wearing masks. You just need to hold the mic close to your mouth.
Not a problem. Okay, my name is Bruce Renfro. I have two questions. The first is, what is the Mount Scottney Prevention Partnership? And my second question is, what is the justification for the Hartland Farmers Market $2,000 request?
So let's take those separately. Does anyone want to speak to the Mount Scottney organization? Can anyone speak? Is there anyone? You want to? Sure. Yep.
Nicole Buck. I'm going to speak from some knowledge, so if anybody wants to inform further. I know the Mount Scottney Prevention Partnership worked with a community group to try and address some of our issues with childhood poverty and community concerns related to that. We had 2 working groups a couple years ago. We also have community members who work for the partnership who do outreach to all the local schools to try and figure out what issues are presented in communities and work to create kind of holistic regional solutions. I know that they work with health concerns and general community health concerns beyond the schools, but I do know that they work with the schools as well.
Great. And for reference, I believe page 98 has the explanation in the town report. The second question was related to the $2,000 for the Hartland Farmers Market. Is there someone here who could address that question? No one here can address question. The town clerk would prefer not to engage in that conversation. It is on page, the description is on page 96. Anyone from the, do you want to say what? Okay. Can you wait for the mic? I'm sorry. Again, for those who don't know, we are, I believe, streaming and recording the proceedings for CATV, which is why the mics are important.
So I'm Tina Barney, resident in Hartland, and I'm on the Hartland Oven Committee. We do not need funding. We self-fund through our pizza sales when we need to, although we'll continue to operate under the aegis of the Hartland Farmers Market, so we certainly want to support the market. I'm also a vendor at the market, and various costs associated with getting the signage, which sometimes has to get replaced, helping with the other programs like the Pop Club. I'm not exactly sure how much of that is supported separately versus from this allocation. It helps to get vendors advertised. I'm trying to think what other costs go into it, but because I'm not a board member of the actual market board, and I'm not seeing anybody else here who is, I can say that we're really trying to promote it. There's been a question of whether we'll even continue the farmers market because it's been hard to get enough vendors and to get enough people shopping there. So if you want to see the market continue, we had been moved down to Windsor at the Artisan Park to try to get more traffic. And for the summer months, like June and July, there was a fair amount of parts so that we could have vendors feel like it was worth it. It's a lot of time to get a stand together, to put it all in there, get all your produce there, get it all out at the end of the day. So I hope people will think about supporting it, but I can't speak to the individual costs that go into that $2,000.
Okay, is there any more discussion on Article 5? Oh, I'm sorry. One moment while we get a mic to you, because no, the problem is that we have folks who are recording. It'll be 1 second. This is what strong 9th grade legs are for.
Hi, Rebecca Genovese. I think I'm just going to ask the question outright that maybe is not really being asked, in that we're allocating $2,000 for a market that is in a commercial environment in the town of Windsor. I'm not against the idea, but I think that that is what the question is.
Any more discussion of, and we are on Article 5 in its entirety. Any more discussion on Article 5?
Linda Genovese, just as a point of reference, if we wanted to change any of these numbers in this Article 5, we would have to vote down the whole article and then amend it? How does that happen?
No, that is not the case. So in this article, you have a couple of different options. You would be allowed to either increase a number or decrease a number, or you could take one of the items and ask to separate it out. So you could move either to amend, to move a number up or down, or you could move to divide the question and take that item separately. So that is an option, but it does require a motion to do so and second. Is there any more discussion on Article 5? Seeing no more discussion, I am going to ask, without objection, not to read the entirety of Article 5 again, and just to read the title, or the header, which is Article 5, shall the town vote to appropriate $55,207 to support social service agencies as follows, and are included in the warning. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed Article 5. Moving on to Article 6. Article 6, shall the voters approve the expenditure of $35,000 from the Fire Department Capital Reserve account for the purposes of fire truck maintenance? Do I have a motion to approve Article 6? Do I have a second? State your name. All right. Article 6 has been moved and seconded. It was addressed for informational purposes in the earlier presentation, but is there any discussion on Article 6? Seeing none, Article 6, shall the voters approve the expenditure of $35,000 from the Fire Department Capital Reserve account for the purposes of fire truck maintenance? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have approved Article 6. On to Article 7. Shall the voters authorize total general fund and highway fund expenditures of $3,480,358, of which $2,793,327 shall be raised by taxes? Do I have a motion to adopt Article 7? Do I have a second? Fione Minor. So Pat Richardson has moved and Fione Minor has seconded Article 7. So we are going to move now to a presentation on Article 7, which is the budget. And without objection, I will ask our town manager, who is not a Hartland resident, to provide a presentation on this article. Dave?
Thank you, Matt. For the first time in a long time, this is essentially one of the most simplistic budgets that I have put together, and I've been doing this for more than a few years at this point. And the reason is pretty simple. And I'm going to back up for just a second and say, when we put a budget together, each year the budget kind of takes on kind of a life of its own. It has particular needs. Something is coming up in the new year. We're trying to implement a new program. We're looking to hire a new position. There's something that is kind of behind the budget or kind of behind the story. Each budget kind of tells a story. This year's story is inflation. And as you can see up here, when we put the budget together, we need to start at a moment in time, because by the time the November Consumer Price Index numbers come out, we are into December, and November numbers don't come out until December, and we've already essentially presented the budget to the Select Board. So we need to pick a moment in time, and we generally look at October numbers. A consumer price index is a reflection of inflation. There's the national number, and you see that highlighted at 7.7. And then we drill down. There is a separate Northeast region for New England. It has been running or trending a little bit lower than the national average. And as October, and this is 2022, just this fall, the number was 6.9. It was running quite high through the summer and is still kind of in the sixes, a little over 6, even today. So that is kind of the underlying message in this year's budget and what we were looking at and what we tried to manage, both from our expenses and our personnel and where the taxpayers are today, and the taxpayers are also grappling with this inflation. So we really tried to kind of bridge the gap between keeping up with what we need to keep up with and recognizing that everybody is in this position. With 6.9% inflation, budgeting below 6.9%. So let me back up. 6.9% is essentially an increase in our cost, basically everybody's cost in the past year. This is a year-over-year number. So that's increased over the year. If we are looking to budget less than that 6.9%, we're essentially cutting back or not keeping up with inflation, or essentially cutting our budget. If we go over that 6.9%, we're budgeting more than inflation and more than what we did last year based upon last year and where we were trending in inflation last year. We also use this number, the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, on a yearly basis to budget or gauge our cost of living increases for our employees. And the same thought process exists for our employees as it does for our budget. So if our employees, if we're not giving a cost of living increase that is keeping up with inflation, they are sliding backwards. So each year we look at this Northeast CPI and we look at our employee and our wages, and we increase the yearly wages by the Northeast CPI. In this case, it was 6.9%. Last year was 4.6. It has been as low as 1% and even as low as 0.8%. So utilizing that 6.9%, we did bump employee wages by that amount. That's a pretty big driver for us in our budget. We're pretty small. We don't have a tremendous amount of programs. So when we move our wages, it affects the budget. And here you get a pretty good indication as to how it affects our budget. So the top line there is wages, and this is non-overtime. We do budget, I don't know, $30,000, $34,000 for the highway crew for overtime. In this case, the constable is not included. However, the rec folks are. And the top line there, the $1,151,898, those are wages that we have budgeted for 2024. That's in this year's budget. And I will also indicate with this number that does not include employer payroll taxes. It does not include the employer contributions to retirement for our full-time year-round employees. That's pretty much strictly the wages that we pay the employees. Last year it was $1,076,439. It's a difference of $75,458 just alone on the wages to the employees. Breaking that down further, how that affects the different funds. So the increase to the employees for the general fund is $48,000. Increase to the highway fund is a little over $27,000. And we're back to that $75,458 number is what the 6.9% increase in wages brings us. Another big driver in this year's budget, again, pertains to personnel, is our health insurance. We experienced an 18% increase in premiums. That comes to $51,741.96. You can see how much we pay in health insurance. 2024, that $279,324 number, versus 2023, the $227,582 number. You break this down, it affects the general fund by $26,362. It affects the highway fund by just over $25,000. Again, bringing us to the total of $51,741. Between wages and insurance, it's a combined $127,000, a little over that. Meanwhile, the change in the budget for this year is $223,031. So over half of the budgetary increase is for wages and health insurance for our employees. I want to point out that we take this very seriously. It's important. Our employees are important. They keep the town running. They plow our roads. They collect your ballots. They collect your taxes. I probably shouldn't say that at this point, but they are there to collect your taxes and to answer any other questions. The listers are there to answer your questions regarding your assessments, and the rec center is busy with our after-school programs and our summer camps and other activities. Other municipalities in the region are experiencing a real difficult time keeping employees on staff. There's a couple towns surrounding us. In the wintertime, it's kind of, they don't have enough bodies to fill the trucks. And there's been talk about, Chief Sanders talks about mutual aid for different towns for fire and rescue. There's actually been some discussion between the towns as far as mutual aid regarding snow plowing and sanding. It has gotten that bad. Keeping the employees up with inflation is important to retain our employees and to keep them with us from a long-term vision. I'll also point out, if you look at the change in the general fund for wages and insurance, at just over $74,000. The total increase in the general fund this year is just $99,000. So you can see there was very little. There are some tweaks, and I'll get into that in a moment, but very little difference between those inflationary measures and the increase in the budget. I'll get into the highway, a little bit different there, but again, a big difference between the wages and insurance and the budgeting for the highway fund. Again, mainly comes down to inflation. So outside of what was affected directly by wages and insurance, I have highlighted a couple of differences here. And these are expenses or changes that kind of fall outside of that. The first one I'll hit on is the Planning Commission. They are basically or usually just a write-in $2,000 every year. This year, they are up to close to $20,000. We budgeted money in here for a town-wide survey to do it appropriately, to help some people or help them put it together and to mail it out. I got that number from open discussion with the Planning Commission back in June and July during a couple of their meetings. And they are in the middle or will be doing a redraft of the town plan. The Planning Commission indicated and the Select Board agreed that that survey would be an important component to that rewrite. So that is in this year's budget. I also point out a decrease in capital improvements. Over $15,000 decrease. No, we don't plan on doing less to the buildings. The capital improvements generally pertains to the buildings and grounds. Still plan on spending a fair amount of time with the buildings and grounds. Why that is less is because we do have and are very focused on two fairly large projects with the Rec Center and Damon Hall. That is through ARPA money. And we presently have an architect working on or looking at the two and coming up with a proposal, and we will see further work on that. The focus that that's going to take will be a fair amount, and the focus will be on that and less on something coming out of the ordinary or yearly operating budget that you see under the capital improvements line item. Buildings and grounds, kind of a minor bump here. We've had some increases. We budgeted for actually fertilizer over for the Summersell Field. Hadn't done that before, about $1,500. Also an increase in trash removal that we've seen kind of over the year and a half, particularly with fuel charges. And we also put in about $5,000 for some landscaping money to kind of complement the work that we have with the Hartland Garden Club. We generally don't budget for that, wood chips or additional plants, or for areas that the Garden Club doesn't do. So we put in a small amount of money to kind of pick up some of that slack and work along with them. Up at the top, we have assessment and constable. There's actually no change here. It's just a matter of adding to the constable line item and taking money out of the assessment line item. I highlighted this because it's an important topic. Under the assessment, if you were to look in your town reports as to what falls under that line item, Vermont State Police is in that line item. We have had a contract at least as long as I've been here and prior. It is for 15 hours a week. We have not been getting anything near what we have contracted with them. As a matter of fact, I think 1 month back in October, we got like 1 hour out of the entire month. So we are very lean on police coverage, if not none. So for a while, James Dow, the constable, was picking up the slack. I asked him to pick up additional hours. In the wintertime, he had the ability to do that. So I shifted some money from Vermont State Police to the town constable. That's in the budget. Still equals about the same amount as what we have contracted for the Vermont State Police today. So that's what that change is in the budget. The only thing I'll say is that James Dow has since taken a job with the Windsor County Sheriff's Department, so his availability is not what it was over the winter time. He may have some hours over the weekend or at night. The money is still budgeted for police coverage, but this is going to be a decent discussion going forward after town meeting at the select board level as to what our next steps are with police coverage. I'll just take this moment to kind of echo what Chief Sanders said, is that I think that two of the bigger issues going forward for the town of Hartland may very well be the discussion on police coverage and some of the steps that he mentioned as far as fire coverage and the amount of calls that they're getting, the amount of things that are asked of Chief Sanders. I call him a couple of times in a month asking him various things. A lot don't really have to do with police coverage, fire coverage, but it may involve an Act 250 permit. It may involve an outside question on what somebody can or can't do. So the time being asked of these people is a great amount, and I think that we're going to need to address it at some point, maybe soon. In the highway department, other than wages and insurance, some changes that we see here. Under administration, I have it highlighted, but essentially the biggest change there was in health insurance. There was also about an $8,000 increase in workers' comp insurance. So that total highway administration, that first line, is a pretty big jump. But again, insurance related. Total paving and resurfacing is a $20,000 differential. That is something that we are asking for above and beyond last year. We have been increasing our paving budget over the last 5 years. 5-6 years ago, we were at 80,000. We're at 220. Just to give you an indication, when we paved Clay Hill, that one section this past summer, that was $280,000. So this is a need. We have Brownsville Road, we have Queechee Road, we have smaller roads in North Hartland we need to keep up with. Unfortunately, that number is also an inflationary number. It is petroleum-based. Prices have skyrocketed on paving. Another component to that is the Pikes of the world have difficulty getting employees. They are busy. So just generally, that expense is increased, and we have budgeted for that. Equipment, you see a $12,000 increase. This goes strictly to our vehicles and to the equipment fund. The increase here is to react to the increase in the fuel prices that we've experienced. For instance, in our budget today under fuel, we already have exceeded what we budgeted. We still have another 4 months to go before the end of the year. So that is affecting us, and we budgeted for that appropriately. Under summer maintenance, there is a change here. I'm just going to drill down a little bit on this one. And this is what's driving this expense line under summer maintenance. Culverts, $6,500 to $12,000. Culverts are very difficult to even get these days. The price on this has increased, so you see an increase in the culverts there. The guardrails is more than what we traditionally spend for guardrails. However, we are looking at the second half of Clay Hill Road, and if anybody travels on Clay Hill Road, particularly that portion of Clay Hill Road, and look at some of the old guardrails that exist there, those all need to be replaced along with the paving. So we have budgeted for that appropriately. The next one down is grants and aid. That is a grant program with the state of Vermont. That is for roadside ditching. They are giving us more money this year. So that $17,000 differential between last year and this year is essentially offset by the same amount of revenue on the revenue side. So we have budgeted for a bigger increase or for more ditching. However, on the revenue side, there's an equal increase, kind of offsets each other. But I highlight it because it does affect, if you're just looking at expenses, it does affect it. It stands out, and I wanted to explain it. So technically, I think is how it's said, is a little less than 6.9% increase. It's a 6.85% increase. You can see the highway being a little bit higher at 8.7, the general fund being a little bit lower at 5.4. However, it comes in at 6.85. That is without appropriations. That's what, essentially, when I put the budget together and present to the select board, is what I can control. You have now passed those appropriations, so the next one down with appropriations jumps or pushes that general fund up to 6.22 and a total increase of 7.26. Kind of back to where I began, the 6.85 is just a little less than the 6.9. We are right in line with inflation and where that is running. Again, bridging that or walking that tightrope between keeping the integral parts of the town, particularly our employees, and our other fixed costs that we've experienced in line with what the taxpayer can reasonably afford and where inflation is presently, and kind of managing that. This is the effect of the budget on your tax rate. It's an 8.19% increase on the tax rate. I'll get to that in a second. But on a $250,000 assessed value or property, it is $115. I'll round up to $116 over last year in what your tax bill would bring. Now, the budget increase is 6.85. The tax rate is 8.19. I will take a stab at this, but there is an explanation. It's difficult to explain, but it is there. So the difference between the 6.9% budgetary increase and the I can't even remember at this point, a little over 8% tax rate increase belongs right here under the pilot payments. That is the North Hartland Dam. We used to have a contract with the North Hartland Dam, and it was about a $35,000 contract, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on how much electricity they generated. We came off of that contract, and they are now assessed like anybody else's property is assessed. So that revenue is actually in the current taxes. So we haven't lost that revenue, so to speak. However, we're more dependent on taxes as a number. So it goes from the 6.9 to the over 8% on the tax rate. I'll just say that we haven't lost that $35,000. It's actually more than that. If we were to put that $35,000 number back into pilot payments and out of current taxes, it would be a 6.9% increase on your tax rate.
Great. Okay, that was a detailed explanation, and without objection, what I'm going to allow is for any questions on the budget to be directed to the town manager, and I'm also going to ask the select board if they would like to respond to any questions after the town manager has responded. They can chime in as well. So without, this is slightly different, but just without objection, is everyone's fine with that? Okay, great.
Rob Anderegg. Dave, could you tell us how the ARPA money affected the budget, either inflow or outflow?
There's a mic behind you.
It didn't affect the budget at all, Rob. So if, for instance, we move forward with the proposal that the architect is putting together, and he does his work, and we need to pay him, we'll expense that out, and then we'll reimburse that particular fund with the ARPA money. Or we'll run it right through the ARPA account, one of the two. But we will run it through most likely the general fund, and then utilize the ARPA money from there. So it's not actually in the budget that you see here.
My name is David Singer. I'm one of the judges in Windsor County. And I asked Matt if I could have a couple of minutes, but I said no because a lot of the things I wanted to address are still in the legislature, so my apologies. In terms of the county's billing to the town, we're having a meeting this afternoon. Do not anticipate a change of any more than 0.5%, so it's fractional. And I will keep our select board, because the legislature is going over the county's relationship to police. I will keep our select board and the listserv. A couple of people asked me questions, so I can keep you as well informed as possible. Thank you.
And for clarity, David Singer is a assistant judge, which is right? That's the term we use now? Well, the assistant judge, who is one of two elected offices that oversees our county budget and county administration. Yeah, right, exactly, yes. Other questions? Yep. One moment.
I've heard a rumor that there's going to be a construction project somewhere near here in town. And I see it, I don't think it's a revenue neutral thing, but I see absolutely no reflection of it in the budget. Either the actual operation of it or the finance cost of it or anything else. And I'd like to know how that fits into it, please.
So it doesn't fit into this fiscal year's budget. So I can operate in one of two ways, but I believe the way and as I get going here, Martin, if I get astray, just give me a kick and I'll get straightened out, is that the bond money we have in-house presently, $1,063,000, I believe is what it is, and that is sitting in an account and in its own separate fund. So as those come in, that will be spent out of that fund. If it goes over, and it's projected to go over, there is surplus funds in the highway fund, and those, that will still most likely get expensed out of the project fund, and we will expense funds from the highway fund into the project fund, and making the project fund whole and accounted for through that individual fund and account. As those funds are spent out of the highway fund, it will draw down, it will be essentially overspending the highway fund, and will draw down the surplus that existed in the highway fund.
Additional questions or discussion? I think we'll open it up to discussion of the article itself. Any additional discussion? Okay. We'll come back to the article. Article 7. Shall the voters authorize total general fund and highway fund expenditures of $3,480,358, of which $2,793,327 shall be raised by taxes? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And you have passed Article 7. On to Article 8. Shall the voters authorize the deposit of $100,000 from the general fund surplus to fund the Culvert Reserve Fund? Do I have a motion to move Article 8? And do I have a second? Bob Bibby. So Nicole Buck moves Article 8. Bob Bibby, Robert Bibby seconds it. Dave, do you want to speak to this article in particular, or? Okay. 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 Is there any discussion on Article 8? Any discussion on Article 8? Okay, seeing none, Article 8, shall the voters authorize to deposit the deposit of $100,000 from the general fund surplus to fund the Culvert Reserve Fund? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed Article 8. Article 9, shall the voters authorize the deposit of $35,273 from the general fund surplus to fund the Bridge Reserve Fund? Do I have a motion to approve Article 9? Gretchen Ocasio moves Article 9. Do I have a second? Great. Article 9 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Kind of like to know if is the Bridge Reserve Fund, and I guess also.
Can you share your name?
Oh, Vic
first.
Hall. Sorry.
Thanks, Vic.
Are these new funds, or are they existing funds?
Without objection, did you hear the question? Okay, without objection, the town manager can respond to that question.
So both of these are existing funds that were set up in last year and in prior years.
Okay. Is there any other discussion of Article 9? Seeing none, Article 9, shall the voters authorize the deposit of $35,273 from the general fund surplus to fund the Bridge Reserve Fund? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have approved Article 9. Article 10. Shall the voters establish a reserve fund to be called the Fire Department Equipment Reserve Fund to be used for the purchase of new fire trucks and equipment and the maintenance thereof in accordance with 24 VSA 2804, and to transfer the funds from the existing Fire Department Capital Reserve account as of June 30th, 2023 to fund this reserve fund. This was the article that was also discussed by Chief Sanders earlier. Is there any discussion on this article? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt Article 10? Thank you. And Payasho seconds it. Article 10 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on Article 10?
Bettina Reed, just a question for Chief Sanders. When you decommission a vehicle, are you able to get any money for that, or does it end up in the junkyard?
It depends. Fire trucks are actually, there's not a hot market for a used fire truck. They need to be dependable. So they end up, you see them parked around here. So we don't anticipate getting much money for them. And historically, we've gotten almost none, or we've donated them to a department in need. So we don't count on it.
Any other discussion of Article 10? Abe?
Thank you, Abe. Pat Richardson. I think it was said in the discussion about Article 10 that the Select Board would have the authority to grant its use, not the voters, as is frequently true for capital reserve funds. So does that need to be specified in the article? It seems it would be safe to specify it in the article, but I'm ignorant.
Without objection, if the town manager has an opinion on that, having, I assume, been involved in crafting the language.
It's my understanding that it's kind of unique to put the language in there that states that it goes to the voters to be voted on. Traditionally, when a reserve fund is set up by the voters for a particular purpose, the Select Board has, in the course of a year, has the ability to manage that fund, provided it is for the specific use of that particular reserve fund. So this was reviewed by legal counsel, and that's why we had to essentially move to a new fund away from the old fund, with the new fund specifying its use and does not need that additional language.
Any further discussion? Over here first.
Tom Kennedy. So this is a somewhat technical question. Capital reserves generally are used for assets that have a certain lifetime. And it seems as though what is a little troubling to me is you have maintenance in there. How are we differentiating between operating costs and maintenance costs? And if we're having issues with maintenance, why don't we just increase the operating budget for maintenance? Because it seems to me maintenance really is not a capital activity. It's an operating. And I'm just concerned that we're going to be using the capital fund for day-to-day operations. And that, I believe, for a capital reserve fund is inappropriate.
Chief Sanders, do you want to respond to that, or we could have? Go ahead.
I'm no accountant, and that's a perfectly valid point. The intent is not to use it as an operating fund. The intent is when there's a major maintenance issue, like the loss of a furnace or a roof replacement, that we need to work outside the bounds of our operating budget to cover and outside of our budgeted maintenance budgets. We'd be reaching up to the capital reserve funds for that. That's the intent. As far as the wording and the accuracy, I default to the department. Right, or yeah. Like a major event like the replacement of a tank on our tanker truck for $18,000. That was the type of maintenance. Wes Johnson also helps us with our vehicle equipment stuff, and he's been after me about differentiating between maintenance and repair. And I've been saying it's a blurry line to me, but the intent is definitely not to use that as part of our operating account. This is a unique year for sure.
Any other comments on that particular line of questions? Is there a proposal of any kind, or? Yep.
So I deal with budgets a lot, so I was just wondering, as a friendly amendment, and I support this, is if it could be something over a certain amount that would be taken from the capital reserve. You know, something in excess of $10,000 or whatever it might be. But I see this, what concerns me is I also think we're going to need to increase the amount of money we're going to be putting into the capital reserve after you start giving us some of the numbers for the fire trucks. And so I want to try to keep that as solvent as possible and not be defraying that budget. So I don't know how to do this, Mr. Moderator.
So my only caution is that it does not reference an amount of money. It is simply the establishment of the fund itself. So I am not sure.
I'm willing to do.
Okay.
Excuse me. I'm willing to just leave it alone for now, but
okay.
Just a word of caution. Maybe next year we do something different.
Yep. If you wanted to change the policy or the purpose that was in here and amend it appropriately, that would be a possibility. But great. Okay. Yep.
We could amend the article to strike the language of maintenance if you chose, if the voters chose. That would be a germane amendment.
From our parliamentarian, Patricia Richardson.
I guess if I can question the chief then, is that okay?
It's not a direct question, but yes, you may pose the question.
I'm not trying to mess you up here. I know people want to go home and have lunch.
So the purpose of that account is largely to put money away for a future fire truck purpose. The secondary purpose of that account is to deal with a major catastrophic event. I've referenced a failing furnace or a roof. God forbid we had a structural collapse of something of a fire station. I'm open to a threshold, but I think there could be a maintenance type of event that was very expensive. We have pressurized water from the North Hartland water system going into the North Hartland fire station. If something terrible happened in there, we could flood and freeze in there, and it wouldn't be a vehicle replacement cost necessarily, but a facility replacement cost that could be categorized as maintenance. So I'm trying to stay open-minded, and I'm open to lunch.
I think I've made my point, so thank you.
Any more discussion on Article 10?
I just, because
Please
I have to.
state your name.
Oh, sorry, Nicole Buck again. Because I have to know all the information. There was a question of, do we have to say that the select board was going to approve it? And I looked up the legislature 24 VSA 2804, which says that it has to be under the control and direction of the legislative branch of the municipality. So that's how that part is covered.
Thank you. Any other discussion on Article 10? I will read the question, the article again. Article 10, shall the voters establish a reserve fund to be called the Fire Department Equipment Reserve Fund to be used for the purchase of new fire trucks and equipment and the maintenance thereof in accordance with 24 VSA 2804, and to transfer the funds from the existing fire department capital reserve account as of June 30, 2023 to fund this reserve fund. All those in favor of approving Article 10, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And you have approved Article 10. So if the Select Board would like to come back up, they are welcome to come back up, but only if you wish. So Article 11, which is to transact any other business necessary and proper under this warning. Is there a motion? I think we do move and second this article? No, it's just an open article. Right, okay, sorry. Thank you for your patience. My first time running the town meeting, and thank you to the parliamentarian. So this is a moment where if people have other business necessary and proper for discussion at town meeting, now is the time.
Okay, Sue Riley, thank you. On the listserv recently, we've had a chat about whether to continue having the town meeting in Damon Hall. There are reasons not to and reasons to aplenty, but I would like to see a committee get together to formulate a plan to change the venue of the town meeting so that people who are obliged to work, or let me say this, so that more of the citizens would be able to be seated, but also to look at day and time so that people who are obliged to work have the possibility of joining us in this wonderful meeting. And I certainly would volunteer to be on that committee. I don't know where to go from here.
So under Article 11, you can't do anything that is binding, but you can certainly express a preference or the start of something. You can also do a straw poll to see who, if the body is interested in pursuing it, but it doesn't have a binding action associated with it.
Fine. I would like to see that straw poll.
Okay. So the way that you would do it is no. You would make. I believe what you would do is you would ask for a show of hands.
Okay.
For those who would be interested in exploring that. I don't think it comes in a formal motion of any kind. But you would just ask. You would ask that I ask, I guess, for a show of hands on supporting that. So the question is on a right. So I'll just try to rephrase it, and please let me know if I'm off. So
okay.
Susan Riley has asked that there be a show of hands to indicate by straw poll in a non-binding way who would be interested in exploring the possibility of a different venue and or date and time for town meeting in the future. And if I could have a raise of hands in favor? Okay, so that's a straw poll. I'll even just, for indication, are there people who are not interested in that line of inquiry?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm not going to do a formal count because it's not a formal vote, but that gives you a sense of where people are on that issue. And it's certainly something that can be pursued by the Select Board in putting together a formal committee of some kind if they so choose.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else to be brought up before we adjourn? Yes? Good.
Hi, Nicole Buck, and I'm not sure if this is appropriate because I've never done it before, but I'm going to do it anyway. So, Nicole Buck, School Board Chair. There's a much larger crowd here than we get at our school meetings, and so I just wanted to formally thank our, I guess, retiring school board member, Sarah Stewart-Taylor. She has been fantastic in helping us craft school policy and school budgeting, and also making the school a warm and welcoming place for our kids. And I just wanted to thank Sarah for her years of service.
Some of us are happier about her retirement than others.
And also along those lines, I'm not sure Scott Richardson is here as well, but Scott left us last year, and I did not get a chance to formally thank him as well. Scott was on the school board for, I think, 10 years. He was just a driving force in a lot of our decisions, and he decided to resign from the school board last year. And I just wanted to also formally thank him in a larger audience. And so, thank you, Scott. And thank you, everybody, for supporting your school.
Any other? There's me over here.
Tom Kennedy again. I just want to thank the Select Board for all they've done, and also thank the voters for giving me my wife back. I also want to make a plea to everybody who lives in town. Social media is great. It's easy access, it's convenient. But you know, sometimes the discussion over social media is really, really difficult for those that are volunteering. So please, you know, at work we have the 24-second rule. Before you send that email, wait 24 seconds. But digitally, behind the scenes, there are human beings there, and they are really affected by what is said. And it makes it harder and harder for people to want to volunteer. So please, remember, we live in town, we love the town, there's no conspiracy going on here. People are doing the best they can. So thank you.
I just want to thank you for doing a wonderful job.
Well, thank you, Jeff.
Jeffrey Bell.
Thank you. I'm going to take a point of personal privilege just to let folks know, because some had followed the work that folks in the community had done to support a refugee couple, Ashakola and now his wife Soma, who has safely traveled to the state. They are here together. And just the group that was working with him, which was an ad hoc group, informally with a lot of help from the Upper Valley Haven, serving as a fiscal sponsor, has gotten tremendous support from this community in allowing them to find a new and safe home here in Vermont. So just wanted to share that on behalf of John Bassett and Sarah Kopolinsky and I, who were working on that project. So just that update there. Any other Any other comments before we have a motion to adjourn? Do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Kurt Peterson. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Oh, it's not debatable? Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and we are adjourned. Thank you. Kurt Peterson.